The truth is, the housing crisis wasn't supposed to get this bad. But today, another company just stepped in claiming they can fix what governments couldn't, and the price of their solution is so low people think it's a scam. Right now, America is dealing with something no politician wants to talk about. Housing isn't just expensive, it's becoming mathematically impossible for the average person. Rent has climbed so fast that millions are now spending over a third of their income just to keep the lights on. And the craziest part? This isn't happening in big cities only. Even small towns are collapsing under the pressure. But here's where it gets interesting. A new model quietly being tested in 2024 is starting to attract attention from people who normally ignore the housing market completely. Tech investors, energy companies, and even automakers. Yes, automakers. Because one of them claims they've found a way to build homes faster than construction companies and cheaper than prefab manufacturers. It sounds impossible, which is exactly why critics assumed it was a marketing stunt. But then the first prototype went public. And that's when everything changed. When the prototype was revealed, people expected a tiny cabin, a cheap trailer, or some recycled version of the same prefab designs we've seen for decades. But the moment the doors opened, the reaction was immediate silence. Not excitement, not applause, silence. Because the interior did not match the price. It didn't even match the category. It looked like something designed for a future where housing is treated like technology, not construction. The walls were engineered, not assembled. The insulation was the kind usually reserved for high-efficiency commercial buildings. And the energy system? Completely off-grid capable. No noisy generators, no messy wiring. The home was designed to power itself. That alone sent real estate influencers into a frenzy. How do you compete with a house that doesn't even need the electric grid? But the real shock wasn't the design. It was the manufacturing process. Instead of taking months, the company revealed that each unit could be built in hours, not days, not weeks, hours. And if that claim is even half true, it would mean one single facility could push out more homes in a month than traditional builders produce in an entire year. Suddenly, the questions began pouring in. How is this so cheap? Why hasn't anyone done this before? And most importantly, who is behind it? Because the reveal wasn't flashy. No massive event. No celebrity endorsements. Just a quiet demonstration that sent the construction industry into panic mode. And the more people looked into it, the stranger it became. This wasn't a startup. This wasn't a real estate company. This wasn't even a construction firm. It was a name no one expected. A company known for building electric cars, rockets, and solar roofs. Which raises the real question. Why would a tech giant step into housing? And what do they know that the rest of the industry doesn't? The confusion only grew when analysts realized this wasn't some side project or experimental idea. The documents, the patents, the supply chain orders, everything pointed to a full-scale operation that had been quietly forming for years. And the craziest part? Almost nobody noticed. While the world was distracted with electric vehicles and reusable rockets, a parallel plan was unfolding in the background, hidden in plain sight. At first, the strategy made no sense. Why would a company that builds futuristic technology suddenly care about affordable homes? But the deeper researchers dug, the more the pattern became impossible to ignore. The same engineers who helped design high-efficiency batteries had been reassigned. The same aerodynamic experts who optimized spacecraft insulation were now listed on housing patents. And several suppliers confirmed that they had been shipping materials normally reserved for aerospace projects. But the orders were filed under structural housing components. That was the moment the theory started circulating. This wasn't about selling tiny houses. This was about rewriting the entire housing industry using the same playbook that disrupted cars and energy. Because if a home could be built like a product instead of a construction project, everything changes. Pricing, manufacturing, lifespan, energy costs, even the concept of home ownership itself. And it didn't stop there. Investigators uncovered a series of land purchases in multiple states, small, strategic, and almost perfectly spaced out. Not enough to make headlines, but enough to raise one major question. Are these future microcommunities? Because the plots weren't random. They were all positioned near major distribution routes, solar-rich regions, and areas with skyrocketing rent. It looked less like real estate and more like staging grounds for something much bigger. The panic behind closed doors became obvious. Traditional builders began lobbying for safety investigations. Real estate panels started hosting emergency sessions, and several major developers reportedly reached out to lawmakers for clarifications, a polite word for, "Please stop this before it destroys us." But by that point, it was too late. The project was already in motion, and rumors started swirling that the next reveal wouldn't just explain the house, it would expose the real mission behind it. And that part? No one was prepared for it. When whispers began circulating about a second reveal, people assumed it would be a simple update, maybe new pricing, maybe a bigger model, maybe some minor feature upgrade. But insiders insisted this wasn't an update at all. It was the moment everything would make sense. And the days leading up to it were filled with leaks that felt too coordinated to be accidents. One anonymous engineer claimed that the home was only phase 1. Another said the tiny house was designed to connect to something larger, something the public hadn't seen yet. Even suppliers described receiving strange orders labeled with terms like grid autonomy, distributed hubs, and multi-unit integration modules. Those aren't words used for a normal home. Those are words used for infrastructure. Then came the part that turned confusion into real fear. A former energy consultant, speaking off record, said the goal wasn't to build affordable homes. It was to weaken the grip of utility companies. According to him, the home was meant to function like a mini power station, storing and distributing energy far more efficiently than traditional systems. And if millions of people suddenly had houses that could power themselves, and even send energy back to the grid, the entire energy market would collapse overnight. That theory spread like wildfire. Housing companies were already panicking, but utility companies? They were furious. Because if the rumors were true, this wasn't just a new home. It was an attack on the industries that control the two most expensive parts of modern life, rent and electricity. But hidden within all the chaos was something even more surprising, something almost nobody noticed until a group of researchers connected the dots. The house's core systems weren't designed independently. They were built to communicate with each other, adjust in real time, share data, and even coordinate with nearby units. That discovery led to one chilling conclusion. The project wasn't about selling individual houses at all. It was about building an entirely new type of neighborhood, one that operates like a living network. A neighborhood where every home talks to the others, optimizes energy flow, balances resources, and reduces costs automatically. A system that becomes smarter with every new owner. And if that were true, the real reveal wouldn't be about the house. It would be about the world it was designed to create. And right when the speculation reached its peak, an internal memo leaked. A memo hinting at a rollout date for something called Phase 0. And whatever Phase 0 was, it wasn't small. Phase 0 was supposed to be a myth, a rumor created by overexcited fans and conspiracy theorists. But the memo changed everything. It wasn't a marketing slogan. It wasn't a software update. It was a coordinated operation involving engineers, logistics teams, and several undisclosed partners. And the memo didn't describe it as a launch. It described it as an activation. That single word sent researchers into panic mode. Activation implied that something was already built, something big enough, complex enough, and hidden enough that it could be switched on without the public knowing what it truly was. And when analysts started putting together timelines, the realization hit like a punch to the chest. The tiny homes weren't the beginning. They were the final piece. Satellite footage revealed unusual structures near several of the land plots connected to the company. Perfectly symmetrical grids. Strange concrete pads. Long, narrow trenches that looked suspiciously like energy conduits. But the most disturbing part was that these sites weren't new. Some had been under development for nearly 2 years, well before the public even knew the home existed. Suddenly, a darker theory emerged. Phase 0 wasn't preparing for customers. It was preparing for deployment. A full ecosystem of smart homes, smart grids, and autonomous energy hubs that could come online simultaneously. Not as scattered neighborhoods, but as synchronized zones. And if that sounds dramatic, the leaked engineering notes made it even worse. One document referenced load balancing across districts, while another mentioned transition stress tests. Those aren't terms used for small-scale tech projects. Those are the terms used when you're about to integrate a completely new form of infrastructure into society, something that might override the old one. Even government agencies started asking questions. A few quietly requested inspection access, which reportedly led to tense conversations behind closed doors. And according to one insider, the response they received was simple and terrifying. Access denied until activation is complete. At this point, it didn't matter whether people believed in the rumors or not. The evidence was everywhere, in the land purchases, the patents, the encrypted supply chain orders, and now the memo announcing Phase 0. And every sign pointed to a single conclusion. A massive transformation was already underway, but the public had only seen the most harmless-looking part of it, the tiny $7.997 home. What no one knew yet was what Phase 0 would actually do once it went live. When the day finally arrived, everyone expected an announcement, a grand reveal, maybe even a live stream explaining what Phase 0 truly meant. But nothing happened. No event. No video. No tweet. Instead, something far stranger took place. Across several states, residents reported sudden spikes in local energy stability, fewer blackouts, smoother grid performance, and unusual nighttime fluctuations in power flow that experts couldn't fully explain. In areas near the quiet land sites, cell data speeds increased unexpectedly. Environmental sensors detected microscopic changes in air quality. Even heat maps showed subtle shifts that analysts struggled to categorize. It was as if something had turned on everywhere at once. And then, a single line appeared on the company's website. No headline, no context, no explanation. Just 3 words in a small corner of the page. Phase 0 active. Within hours, the line vanished. But by then, the message was clear. Whatever had been built was no longer being tested. It was already running. The affordable house wasn't a product. It was a doorway, a quiet entry point into a system larger than anyone could have predicted, a system designed to reshape housing, energy, and community structure from the inside out. A system that is still growing, silently, neighborhood by neighborhood, district by district. And while nobody knows what the next phase looks like, one thing is impossible to ignore. The most powerful transformations in history never announce themselves with noise. They begin quietly, right before the world realizes everything has already changed.